Hello, my name is Jacob Monk, and welcome to a second session in this short seminar about democracy. Well, in the first session, you can see it here on YouTube, we discussed the history of democracy. And now we are going to see some examples of how democracy is practiced. And I have to warn you from the beginning, we have good and bad examples. And that is because, as I've told you already, democracy is an ideal. There are a lot of times in history, a lot of countries where they do not have democracy. Maybe they want it, I don't know. I would like them to have democracy, but to have democracy you need to have some kind of stable leadership. You have to have some kind of tradition, maybe some kind of political structure that makes it possible to let the democracy be some kind of frame around the leadership of this certain country. So I'll just say democracy is an ideal, and it is certainly not practiced all over in the world, and I believe it will never be. But let's start up. You know, I have my screen recorder running here beside me, and I want to start up by reminding you of the Constitution of Human Rights that UN voted for in 1948. This is still the basic of any democratic society in the world. And we need the human rights to be fulfilled. It's best if it's all over the world, but it is not. So we will just see our own history and the history of the world as some kind of development. And I believe the world will never be perfect, but you have our ideals, our political, our moral ideals in the Constitution of Human Rights. And let's repeat very short, you're not allowed to do anything that can harm other people, but you shall have freedom of speech, freedom to invest your money where we want, freedom to act and travel as you want, freedom to make your own family, and all kind of freedoms, as long as you do not harm other people. And we have already seen this Constitution of Human Rights. I do not need to show it once again, but I'll take some examples of what we mean by democracy. Well, in 1821, there was a war between Mexico and the United States. They had a war about California. On the picture here you see California. Most of the Californians, they wanted to be a part of the United States, but in earlier time they had been a part of Mexico. And Mexico wanted them to continue to be a part of Mexico. But the population, the great majority of the population in California, they didn't want to be a part of Mexico anymore. So they changed their citizenship, and since then California has been a part of America. And let's see some other examples. Here we have Albania, Kosovo, Serbia. Maybe you remember in 2008 there was a war between Serbia and the population in Kosovo, because the population in Kosovo, they were Muslims. They wanted to be connected, maybe to be a part of Albania. They certainly did not want to be a part of the Christian Serbia. And today it's recognized by most countries in the world, including United States, England, Denmark, where I'm living myself, and many other countries, that Kosovo is not a part of Serbia. It is an independent state. And let's see here, we have Danzig. Danzig is today a part of Poland, but before the Second World War it was a part of Germany. But the population wanted to be a part of Poland, and after the war they had the possibility to have a vote, and in this vote they decided to be a part of Poland, and they are a part of Poland today. And here we have the Falkland Islands. The Falkland Islands, they have not many citizens, but most of the citizens, they want to be a part of the British Empire, not a part of Argentine, although that Argentine want them to be a part of Argentine. Of course, Argentine is closer in a geographical way, but nevertheless the population wants to be a part of the British Empire. And there was a war between Britain and Argentine in 1982, and Argentine lost. And still today, the Falkland Islands, they are a part of Britain. And now we come to an example where the rules is not really going on that well, because in 2014 the population in Crimea, they wanted to be a part of Russia. There had been a coup d'etat in Kiev in Ukraine, and the population in Crimea, they said now it's the time to have a public vote so we can be a part of Russia, because more than 90% of the population in Crimea, they are Russians. So they voted, and 93% of the population in Crimea, they voted for returning to be a part of Russia. They had been a part of Russia before, actually since the 17th century, so it was quite naturally for them to be a part of Russia again. And that happened. Today Crimea is a part of Russia, but a lot of the states being member of the European Union and being member of NATO, they call themselves democratic states, but they do not recognize democracy here in Crimea. And I'll say that is some kind of double standard. You know, in a lot of the European papers, you can see drawings like this, the bad Russian bear forcing the poor Ukrainians to be a part of Russia. And you can see the Ukrainians, they try to move their island another way. They want to be a part of Europe. That's what this drawing shows. But I have to tell you, this is absolutely pure propaganda, because 93% of the population in Crimea, they wanted to be a part of Russia, not to be a part of the European Union, and not to be a part of Ukraine. I know that Ukraine wants to be a part of the European Union, and I can tell you that will not happen. I can't tell about 100 years from now, but in the first 25 years from now, it won't happen. You can listen to the politicians in the European Parliament. I know that the Americans want Ukraine to be a part of the European Union, but the population in the European Union, including the population in Denmark, where I'm living, we do not want Ukraine to be a part of the European Union. But nevertheless, personally, I don't care at all. Ukraine shall be welcome to be a part of the European Union. But first of all, they have to install democracy in Ukraine, and they do not have democracy in Ukraine. They have some kind of junta, very inspired by right-wing National Socialist politicians that are running a big part of the political life and most of the military in Ukraine. And that's one of the reasons that the Russians in Crimea, they didn't want to continue their connections to Ukraine. They wanted to return to their own motherland, and that is Russia. So I hope that democracy will be accepted also in Crimea, because if democracy is a good ideal, and I think so, then we must try to install democracy all over the world. And I don't accept that there are strong forces in the world. I won't mention any countries, but you know there are strong forces in the world that want to force other states to have a certain political agenda. They do not want democracy to be installed in all countries in the world. Here you have a little list of all the countries that the US has invaded in the last 60 years. And you know, when you invade countries because you're not satisfied with the political structure, many of these countries, they were democracies. But Jews do not want democracy to work in countries when they are not submitted to the American Hollywood culture. So here in this Syria, we are followers of real democracy where the voters can decide what country their part of the world is connected to. That is what is going on in the Baltic countries, in Falkland Islands, and of course in Kosovo, in Albania, and that is what should be going on here in Crimea too. But there is a big problem with Crimea, because the Americans, they have installed military bases all over the world. Why? Is it to defend America? No. It's to force their political agenda upon other people. And this is absolutely not in harmony with what we call human rights and the UN Constitution, because there it's written that any number of people can decide themselves what country they want to be a part of or what kind of leadership they want to have. This is the idea of human rights. And I hope that democracy and human rights will be installed in every country in the world. Thank you for listening.